everybody. My name is Helen McElhinney. I'm the Executive Director of the CDAC Network, and it gives me great pleasure to welcome you all here today to the Frontline Club, part of the AI UK Fringe Festival. I won't say too much now, there's plenty of time for talking. I'm just going to open up to invite our keynote speaker to the stage, Abeba Birhane, who many of you will know, cognitive scientist from Ethiopia, is kindly going to talk us through some of the tech issues today.
Thank you. Thanks so much. Hi, everyone. It's great to be here. So I think the title says it all. So you get an idea of what I'm going to talk about. So I'll go ahead and start. So just a warning that there will be some of the slides will contain images that might be unpleasant or offensive. Unfortunately, this has become part and parcel of working with large-scale data sets. You do come across a lot of problematic images and text. So just a warning now. So as many of you might be aware, DALL-E, one of the first, at least to the public, generative image, or rather models hit, I think, April 2022. That was the first time where generative AI really became mainstream. It had, I think, over 1 million users, subscribers within the first 3 months. And that can be noted as a notable moment where generative AI really became mainstream. And then you have other models such as Midjourney and Stable Diffusion released in the same year, in July and August, I think, 2022. And then November, towards the end of 2022, we had ChatGPT, and that really revolutionized not just the tech world, but the entire AI landscape and discussions around ethics, governance, and so on. So these are some passages from the first one from MIT Tech Review, the second one from Reuters, about ChatGPT, where I quote, it's estimated to have reached over, or rather 100 million monthly active users in January. That was just 2 months after its release. So, as I said, with these systems becoming mainstream, a lot of the conversation has also become mainstream about, the capabilities of AI, but also the ethics and governance of AI. And unfortunately, as these generative systems become accessible and available to the general public, unfortunately, the discussion on ethics also took a dark turn, where a lot of the conversation dominated around these hypothetical concerns about existential risk, rogue or AI. None of it has any scientific groundings, but these are topics that captivate not only some of the AI community, but regulators and policymakers and so on. And as the ethics discourse, or rather the safety discourse, is dominated by these hypothetical and kind of made-up issues, journalists and media also picks up these, again, unfortunately, misguided issues and framings, and unfortunately, we have to kind of deal with the aftermath of that. So, again, as these systems become mainstream, as there is more and more awareness about the ethical, legal, and technical issues, AI for good has become more of a justification to show or to drive the conversation around, or rather, AI for good has become a primary example where, despite their limitations, despite their problems, the narrative goes that we can still use AI for good. And there are plenty of initiatives, and today I will talk about the issues with these AI for good initiatives. So you find them everywhere, from big tech corporations such as Microsoft here. You have Google dedicating huge amounts of money and resources to these initiatives. You also have plenty of academic work where there is a lot of discussions around AI for good. Here are just a couple of examples of academic papers. And even the philanthropic space is really investing in really dominating the AI for good space. Sometimes, the AI for good initiatives themselves are seen as as a venture to make money, as can be seen here by this example. And again, it's not just big tech or philanthropists or academics that are animated by AI for good initiatives. You also have large organizations such as the UN or even big humanitarian spaces where they really are pushing to deploy AI for various societal, historical, and political problems. I present you here a couple of initiatives. This is AI for Good Global Summit, where every year you have a huge conference in Geneva. There might be some, genuinely beneficial initiatives there, but for the most part, these initiatives tend to have of little value for the actual communities that they are supposed to serve. So before we delve into whether AI can be any good or not for various societal problems, maybe we can spend just a few minutes kind of dissecting, or rather looking into what exactly AI is, so that we have a better understanding of why and why not AI might be good or even maybe harmful when deployed in some circumstances. So at the core of AI, and more particularly because AI is a very broad term, a lot of techniques these days just, are pushed under the big blanket term of AI. So if you look at machine learning itself, at the core of it, what it does is you have huge amounts of data, and it's basically a technique that uncovers patterns, that finds patterns in a vast amount of data. It doesn't tell you how it's finding patterns. It doesn't tell you how it has come up with these, with these patterns. It's just an optimization process. And again, a lot of AI is really not about understanding these underlying patterns. As I said, most of the time, it's a predictive system. You use those, historical data to build models that predict the future, or that, that give you an indication of how things will unfold based on how things have happened in the past. So again, it's not a tool for understanding underlying issues. It's a tool for just, finding patterns and building models to replicate historical patterns. And again, as we are gathering massive amounts of data and building models, whether it's to categorize, to generate, or to predict, we really are simplifying a lot of underlying historical, political, cultural issues, as again the data we gather does not capture, again, depending on what data you are gathering, depending on the phenomena, you are really barely capturing the phenomena with data. And the more social the problem is, or the phenomena is, the less likely you are to capture it with data. Because not everything can be captured with data, even with massive amounts of data. And very impressive techniques these days. So again, to give you example, so you can think of phenomena as maybe very low stake, or something like physical systems such as I guess I'll stick with the example. So you have, for example, nowcasting, which is forecasting the weather just for a very short amount of time, for the next 2 or 3 hours. So this is something you can have underlying theory. You can, gather enough data through, various sensors or IoT tools that you set out. So with these kind of applications, you are likely to capture the phenomena in data, but building weather prediction is also very low in terms of ethical concerns that arise with it. Another example is protein folding within the biological systems also. These are the kind of models that companies like DeepMind have really advanced because, again, these are phenomena that you can have underlying rules that you can capture with data, you can model, we can categorize, predict, and produce, and so on. And the same goes for board games, such as AlphaGo. Again, DeepMind excels at these. So as you can see, these are the kind of phenomena that if you build AI models, you will have high accuracy because, again, these are things you can easily operationalize, you can collect data, and you can build models on. However, but in the flip side is the ethical questions tend to be relatively low stake. However, as we veer into social phenomena, if we are, for example, talking about deciding who might be a fraudster, who might be unjustly or unfairly collecting, social welfare benefits. These are concepts that are, that are social and cultural through and through. Again, another example is even in the UK here, just after COVID, or rather during COVID, where you had, by the way, for the Dutch social welfare system that they deployed algorithms, that was a huge scandal. Because they found hundreds of people were unjustly not given their, the welfare support that they were due. So the algorithm was discontinued. The same here in the UK, where during COVID, the government deployed an algorithm to allocate A-level grades, I think from a company called Equalifax. And then following investigation, following audits, they discovered that the algorithm was allocating grades more based on area codes as opposed to the merit of the student, and the decision was reversed and the algorithm was discontinued. Again, within law enforcement, we are witnessing that facial recognition systems can catastrophically fail, and when they fail, the consequences are really dire. So, for example, we have 6 people that have gone to jail, or in the US, that we know of. There might be plenty more that have not been documented, because people sometimes are not even aware, and people don't have access to, to contest the decisions. So in things such as what we call these social systems, so such as things such as allocating exam grades, or using algorithms for allocating welfare benefits, or using algorithms within law enforcement. These are the problems that we are grappling are not as straightforward as physical or biological systems, where you have, again, straightforward phenomena. You can drive straightforward question, and then gather your data and capture the phenomena with your models. Whereas as we move into the social space, these are not problems that lend themselves to a very straightforward, question, or a very straightforward data gathering that then can be modeled. So as a result, the more social the problem or the phenomena is that we are dealing, the less likely our model will be helpful or accurate at all, and the more likely that the damage it might cause, because we tend to, as model builders, we tend to have so much faith in these things without realizing we are simplifying the problem and moving forward. So given now that we have a kind of a basic idea of, problems that can be, again, very broadly categorized as, physical, biological, social, and so on. Now that we've seen that, social problems tend not to lend themselves for computational methods. And as we are veering to, AI for social good, we are inherently dealing with social problems that have political and historical roots. So our tools are unlikely to be that helpful. They might even bring more harm than good. Again, we also have to look at not just the phenomena that we are modeling itself, and how accurate our model can be. We also have to kind of zoom out and look at the broader, bigger picture, which is the social infrastructure of machine learning itself. The entire field is built on, business models that tend to maximize profit, as opposed to, advance from the point of view of social justice or protecting the interests of the most marginalized. So in this regard, again, there is a robust body of research highlighting that the entire field of AI, and more particularly machine learning, tends to help concentrate power on the hands of few. And this is becoming a more severe phenomena. Just to illustrate the point, this is an analysis, a paper that myself and my colleagues did a couple of years back now, where we looked at 100 most influential papers in machine learning from two of the most prestigious conferences called ICML and NeurIPS. So we looked at the funding and author affiliations of the authors of these most influential papers. And we compared data across 10 years. So as you can see in the first pie chart, back in 2008 and 2009, 77% of the most influential papers came from extremely diverse authors, extremely diverse contributors, including researchers from the Global South. And only 11% of those papers were either authored or funded by big tech corporations. So 10 years later, in 2018 and 2019, that has drastically changed, and it's changing even at a higher frequency at the moment. So big tech affiliation jumped from 11% to 58%. So in 2008 and 2009, over 50% of the papers, the most influential papers, these are not just papers, these are papers that really shape the direction of the field. These are papers, introducing, influential models such as deepfakes, models that are used for recommender systems and so on. And then only 28% of those influential papers came from these diverse groups, and hardly any from the Global South. So as big tech is gaining more and more influence in controlling the field and directing the direction of the field, it comes at a cost of kind of outsourcing and pushing out more diverse researchers. And machine learning research requires high compute resources, and it's becoming, you need more and more compute power. Means that only privileged universities and big tech can have the resources to carry out machine learning research. So in summary, the field is becoming shaped and controlled by a few actors. And these are, again, the field is built on exploitative labor. I'm sure my co-speakers will explain in much more detail after my talk. But also, I want to focus a little bit on the data set itself. So a lot of the foundational machine learning techniques are not new. We've had them since the 1940s, 50s, 60s. Jeff Hinton's influential paper on deep learning was in 1989. But rather, what really pushed AI into what's known as the AI revolution is the internet, the availability of large-scale data sets. So it was data that was lacking. So it's the availability, these large-scale data sets that are often harvested from the web that really made, that really gave us the AI revolution. And unfortunately, a lot of that data is gathered in a way that is borderline illegal. And the data itself, not only the way it's gathered, but also the data itself. I work as a data auditor. The data itself tends to be super problematic, not only in the content, in what's contained in the data, but also as you can see here, this feels like old work now because the field moves so fast. So this was back in 2029, where myself and my colleague looked at a computer vision dataset, an image dataset called 80 million tiny images. That was big by then, but now datasets have hit, trillions of tokens. And we were the first to audit that dataset. Until recently, auditing a dataset wasn't a norm. It wasn't a thing that people do, which is really surprising. Machine learners rarely look at the data itself, even though data is a really important component, the backbone of AI. And as you can see, we found several thousands of images labeled with problematic text, the B word, the C word, the N word, the W word. A lot of it I present here with asterisks, and I've also blurred the images. So this is the first 25 images labeled with the N word, as you can see. And thankfully that image was withdrawn following our findings. Again, because the large-scale data sets come from the web, and as you all know, the web really reflects, the good, the bad, and the ugliness of humanity. Unfortunately, a lot of concepts, cultures, identities, and so on tend to be represented in a very stereotypical, sometimes in a negative stereotypical way. So this is from the data audit myself and my colleagues did, called Line 400 million. Again, this feels old because data sets appear very regularly. So this is the first set of images that the portal gives you when you query it with the word African. Really giving you a very tired, cliched, stereotyped image of the continent. But compare that with European, the continent is represented as if, there is no tribes, cultures, and so on, just in, maps and flags. It's probably very obvious by now. Problems with datasets necessarily translate to problems with models. There has been, again, plenty of research showing that the models really models learn patterns from datasets, so they do reflect the dataset distribution. So this is from DALI. I was playing around with the first one is emotional author. As you can see, it gives you, again, a very stereotypical understanding or image of what an emotional author might be, just women looking emotional. Compare that with intellectual author, it gives you all men looking super professional. This is stable diffusion. I think I did this a while back, maybe 6 months back. So things change again very fast. So African people at work, and this is the image it generates, again reflecting, Western held stereotypes of the continent, and compare that with European people at work. The image speaks for itself. And back in October, reporters from NPR, again, as I said, there has been plenty of work, both from investigative journalists and academics. And this one was Mid-Journey, I think, where they tried to get the model to produce an image of a black doctor treating white children. And the model just refused to do that. And this is the image it gave. And so just to come back to the social or AI for social good, as we can see, the entire field is built on questionable and illegal practices, and it has a business model that aims to maximize profit as opposed to, doing good. And the model itself, the various models, especially generative models that we have reviewed here, we provided as examples. Even if we have the objective, even if we shift the business model to benefit, or rather to prioritize the welfare of those that are most impacted, the models themselves, because they are trained on problematic data, and just to clarify, data is not the only problem. Even if you magically fix data, a lot of problems don't disappear. The models themselves tend to reflect whether, it's, image generators or text generators, tend to reflect societal and historical biases and discriminatory behaviors. So this is a very recent audit that came out just last week, where they audited 5 of the top or state-of-the-art models: Gemini, Mixtra, Llama 2, and GPT-4 in cloud. And as you can see, they prompted them on misinformation on the American election. And as you can see here, they produce text that is extremely inaccurate, harmful, incomplete, and biased. So these models themselves are very unlikely to help advance social goods. Another example, again, this came, I think, 2 weeks ago by Bloomberg journalists, where, again, they played around, or they audited GPT-4 or one of the GPT variants, to see, because a lot of companies are adopting generative models as hiring tools to kind of help with hiring. And the short summary of their finding is that jobs that are white collar, that are respectable, such as software engineering, were recommended to, even though they gave these models the exact qualifications, the exact descriptions, the only variable that was changing was the name of the applicant. And African American names CVs with African American names were recommended these high-paying jobs at a much lower rate compared to Caucasian-sounding names. And same goes, jobs such as child minding or cleaning were recommended to Latina women and Black women at a higher rate compared to other identities. So the points I want to highlight with this is that these, what we are calling state-of-the-art, the best models, do reflect societal and historical stereotypes and biases and discriminatory patterns, which makes them, unhelpful in social situations. So coming back to doing social good, because I'm involved with the UN, I'm part of the high-level AI advisory board, and I see the UN pushing AI to advance what they call SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals. So the UN set out these goals to eliminate, poverty, hunger, gender discrimination, racial discrimination, and so on by 2030. This was what's known as the Sustainable Development Goal. And halfway through the goal, they are realizing that hardly any of the goals are in the right direction. Some of them are facing stagnation, some of them are even regressing. So you can understand why they are looking for at any direction to make sure that these goals are met. But unfortunately, as we can see, AI is really not the tool that will aid advance these SDGs. Just to concretize what I'm saying, I'll give you a couple of examples. The first one, SDG 1, is no poverty. And this is taken from the last year's report, the SDG Progress Report 2023. As you can see, the goal of no poverty is really not going as planned. And from the report, you know, the researchers or the people that did the research themselves highlight that these are issues that need, you know, that governments and stakeholders must target underlying factors. And to achieve this goal, we need sustainable social protection for all. This one is zero hunger. Again, what they are recommending here is policy solutions that tackle entrenched inequalities. This highlights the root cause of the problems is political. They need, you know, structural change. They need, you know, policy solutions to advance these goals. And as I said, political solutions and structural solutions is something AI is really bad at grasping and modeling. So as we move, again, as we push AI in these spaces, in problems that necessarily have political and historical and, you know, complex societal roots, bringing in simplistic tool like AI will give us the impression that we are actually doing something when we might actually be causing more harm. This is SDG 4 and 5. They are the same, to be honest. The problem is, you know, the root causes tend to be, you know, structural and political. So just to give you this, the kind of critique that I'm making, or that, you know, that's being made in this space is not new. So it has existed as, you know, as long as AI has existed. So this is from a 1985 interview with Joseph Weizenbaum, where he was asked, you know, back then they were kind of talking about how can we bring computers to help education. And when he was asked that, you know, what's the purpose, what's the you know, the benefit of computers for education, he reversed the question and he asked, what is it that education wants to achieve? We have to start from that, instead of thinking like, oh, we have this computer, what do we do with it? So but basically what we are doing with generative models, it's just, you know, they are just tools floating around, you know, looking for purpose, looking to be applied here or there. They are not developed with a clear application or use case. And his comment is that, you know, if a child is not going to school, or if you know, that child is not paying attention in class, you know, that child might actually be going to school with no food. And for a child that where the problem that is preventing that child from attending school properly is lack of food, then bringing computer is not going to do much. But for the people that are in management places, they can go, look, we are doing something, we are bringing tools, we are bringing computers, we are bringing solutions. It gives us the impression that we are doing something, whether that something is without doing without actually doing the proper understanding of what is needed, what is the root cause. And this is basically the same as what we are seeing now with humanitarian agencies moving more and more into AI, looking into AI to solve political solutions. I was going to get into regulation, but we will skip it. But the basic line is that even last week we celebrated that the EU AI Act came into force, or rather passed, and a lot of people celebrated it, and rightly so. But as you can see, it has huge glaring gaps. So even though people that are at the margins of society are negatively disproportionately impacted, regulators or policymakers hardly pay attention to the needs and the welfares of those, as you can see pointed out by Access Now evaluations last week, or rather this week. So I thought I would bring in this tweet and more to pay more attention to Nialing's response. She used to work for Google. She left Google. She's one of the highly respected AI scientists. As you can see, it's not that AI may not be that helpful. It might actually be harmful for humanitarian ventures, but rather we might move into a situation where developing nations are forced to adopt these systems in order to actually get benefits and aids. And that may not be too far, and that's the scary part. And I'll just summarize what I've been saying, and I'll wrap up. So this, venturing into AI gives us the kind of a tech solution, a quick fix into complex problems, but that will likely backfire, and it might be too late, or we might see so much disaster before we actually realize the harm it's doing. So if we are actually interested in using not necessarily AI, but various computational tools, perhaps to gather data, to understand the problem, the underlying problem, we have to have a clear objective. We have to ask, so these are the starting questions we should be asking. What is the problem in its history? What are the root causes? What is the effective way? Sometimes there are plenty more alternative solutions before we jump into AI. And who is at the table? Are we just, in the West, sitting at our shiny tables and formulating what the problems of the poor might be, and then building this tech and shipping it and deploying it? But who is actually doing the contemplation, the formulation of these problems? And whose perspective is it? And finally, any genuine AI solution to be deployed for social goods has to necessarily be grounded in the problems that the end user are experiencing, not our perception or not our understanding of what their problem might be. And it also has to be built from the ground up. Again, not us building and shipping it over. This is the final takeaway if anybody wants to take AI for good in a serious way. Thank you.